Hello everybody, this is your student Facebook meteorologist Sean Bagden here, and we're going to be going over what's happening in the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean Sea as of right now, and even what's going on out here in the middle of the Atlantic in the MDR, Main Development Region, right around 15 degrees north of the equator, heading toward the Windward Islands here. So currently we have Tropical Storm Gamma and what could become Tropical Storm Delta by the end of the day today. And we're going to first look at Gamma, which is the least threatening of these storms, even though it is closer to land. And then we have potential Storm Delta, which has a 80% chance of developing here, that could have much more significant impacts on the United States. So starting with Tropical Storm Gamma here, we've got a minimum central pressure of 997 millibars and a maximum sustained wind at 60 miles per hour, movement north at 2. So here's our current forecast track from Tropical Storm Gamma right here. And we can clearly see that it's going to be moving very slowly off to the south and the west here, remaining a tropical storm and likely going to be seeing tropical storm warnings issued further down along the western Yucatan as marginal tropical storm force winds and flooding rains likely to double-digit amounts could be affecting this northern and western coastline of the Yucatan Peninsula as well as we head into the middle of the week, and then it is expected to slowly taper off and die in the southern Gulf of Mexico. That can be clearly seen here on the NHC forecast guidance with a slowly weakening storm, and I think we see this die much sooner than 120 hours, maybe in the 72-hour range here, just because of this. So right now, this is your upper level winds around 200 millibars, and hurricanes like to flourish in areas of weak upper level flow. And you can see it's kind of creating its own environment right here, just north of the Yucatan with this light upper level flow, but our upper level cloud deck does expand much further away from the center than this area of weak flow. So what we see here all around this area of weak 10 to 15 knot flow around this tropical storm Gamma here, we can see a overwhelmingly high upper level flow from the south to the north here towards the Atlantic coastline, and this should be what ends up weakening the storm. As you can see, this northerly shear is right around 30 knots on the northeastern side of it, and even as we head into the Gulf of Mexico here, the western Gulf, southwestern Gulf, we can see our values are also in that 30 to 35 knot range as well, even a little stronger in the environment it's moving into, and this trend should continue through the next few days here, and maybe even strengthen a little bit with this trough axis ejecting from the west to the east here. That can also help to create a weakening trend of Tropical Storm Gamma here, but it's slowly going to weaken and head off to the south and west, likely becoming not much of a threat to any land masses once it's done producing heavy rains and marginal tropical storm force winds along the northern Yucatan Peninsula. So now moving on to... Oh, actually, first, one other thing. Here's the satellite imagery of Gamma right here, and we can clearly see this northerly wind shear taking hold of it. You can see normally all these clouds up here to the northeast of it would be concentrated right around the center right here. And we can see the center is having a very hard time keeping thunderstorms around it. Center is somewhere in here, I believe, but there's hardly any storms around the center. Most of them are displaced well to the north and east of the storm due to that northerly and slight easterly component to the shear here. So that just visualizes what I just showed you on that map of wind bars. This thing is getting ripped apart by this upper level wind shear, as you can see actually by these upper level clouds. Not looking good for Gamma, likely going to be just a part of our memory within the next few days here. So now going on to what could potentially be the big story here in the Gulf of Mexico yet again. It is this invest right here that has an 80% chance of development. And even further back here, we have two disturbances that have slight chances for development in the around 10% range here. So nothing to look at right now, but certainly should be watched as they move into more favorable environments as they head off to the west here. So looking at this disturbance, this is what's going to be creating some issues possibly in the Gulf Coast states of the US. So we're going to start out by moving this view to Mexico, I believe. One second. Let this load. Nope, we want continental maybe? No, where is it? Okay, we'll start here in the Caribbean. That'll actually work very well. So here's our system right here. We can see this upper level anticyclone with weakening winds starting to develop right here, and will likely be considered a tropical storm by the end of the day today, or maybe early in the day tomorrow. But this is very likely to become our next named storm, which would be Delta, especially with these weakening winds developing. And it looks like we're starting to get westerly flow on the north and easterly flow on the southern side of the system, which means we're starting to get that closed low developing. That's why we have the hurricane hunters out in this to see if this is also happening near the surface as well. As we can see, this storm is in an area of relatively higher wind shear aloft, but storm relative shear will remain low due to the fact the system will be moving from east to west generally with the flow of the wind. So likely very minimal shearing effects due to this strong upper level flow around 30 knots. And this flow is expected to bend off to the north as a lobe of high pressure starts to erode here. You can see this area of the Bermuda High that kind of extends out here towards the Yucatan Peninsula. This is expected to erode and allow this wind shear to tilt more into this gap here between the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. And that will allow the weak storm relative shear to continue pretty much throughout the life cycle of this cyclone, which will likely be named Delta. So we're going to head off one day into the future right here, hour 30, and we'll track this cyclone. We can see our cyclone is located right here, just to the south of this island, and even now we can see upper level flow has really started to slacken off. Looks like this area of wind shear has moved off to the west and is located up near the base of this trough axis more now. And now we're left with weak upper level flow around the system, which is located somewhere in here. And this will lead to the potential for strengthening. Due to the fact the Caribbean is a little bit cooler than the Gulf of Mexico, likely no rapid intensification, as temperatures are remaining marginal for that. But as it moves into the Gulf, if we have rapidly decreasing wind shear like we do here, we could have big problems somewhere along the Gulf Coast as we head into the end of next week. I believe our time frame is on this system. We're going to head one more day into the future on to Tuesday night here. And let's play a game of Find the Low. Here it is. It is right in between the northeastern Yucatan and the western Gulf of Cuba here. Or the western side of Cuba. It has found its spot right there, pretty much, it appears. And again, weak wind shear, and we have this lobe of high pressure that has started to erode, allowing it to get around the Yucatan but not run into Cuba, which leads us to think that it's going to hold together pretty well if this ends up being true, which most model members show a solution like this with it going in between these two land masses here of Cuba and the Yucatan Peninsula. At this time, we'll likely have a high-end tropical storm or low-end hurricane heading into the Gulf of Mexico, and as this high continues to stay the course and stay about as strong as it is, it's going to be funneling it into this area of relatively weak wind shear of 15 to 20 knots aloft, which, since this system will be moving here, our storm relative shear will be near zero as it's moving its way up towards the northern coastline of the Gulf of Mexico. Heading one more day into the future, into Thursday, early in the morning, we can see we even start to get a closed low here at 200 millibars, which is not very common with systems like this. So this showing a very strong system with, again, very weak wind shear aloft. We have this northerly flow, but due to the fact that this northerly flow is in the direction it's moving, unlike with Gamma, we're going to be seeing weaker overall wind shear, and also this jet streak off to the north and west of the system could help to ventilate the outflow, which could also lead to rapid intensification as it enters the warmer Gulf of Mexico here. And as we can see, as these shear vectors are pointing, it's pointing it right into Louisiana here, yet again, with these potential for Louisiana landfalls, although it is way too far out to be making a determination on where it will make landfall. We can make the determination that we are going to see a very powerful storm here in the Gulf of Mexico due to that lack of wind shear over the system and extremely warm sea surface temperatures. So things will be very favorable once it gets into the Gulf of Mexico, looking at model consistency for rapid intensification of the system. Could even see a major hurricane make landfall yet again somewhere along the U.S. Gulf coastline. Heading one more day into the future, this is Saturday, and it looks like at this point we will have had a landfalling tropical system sometime during the day on Friday. Here it is, right before landfall at 12Z on Friday. That's Friday in the morning, likely making landfall Friday afternoon. So what you should get from this is that track is currently uncertain. Pretty much model consensus goes anywhere from Houston out to Tallahassee. So anywhere in between that area should be watching this system closely. And we'll continue to watch this probably 3 to 4 days out from landfall. We will give you a list of impacts and start to narrow down a landfall location and where our potential impacts could be the worst. So that is pretty much the latest on this system that is currently just entering the Caribbean Sea here, going to be entering an increasingly favorable environment as wind shear is expected to be on the decrease. We will bring you to the model data on this system if it wants to load here. I guess we don't have the model data here. Oh, here we go. Invest 92L, I believe we're looking at. Yes, it is. Here is the latest satellite imagery of Invest 92L. This is the one that could become Delta shortly here. We can learn a lot from looking at the satellite imagery, and we can see that it's being very well sheared right here by this westerly flow, but as it continues to be picking up through as this system starts to pick up speed, that storm relative shear will tend to decrease. I believe this is your Invest right here. You can start seeing that low level spin. So this is our Invest, this little blob of convection right here. As that continues to pick up speed, we'll be seeing this system be a little less sheared here, and this shear is also expected to weaken over the next 24 hours. So likely starting tomorrow afternoon, we'll see this thing really start taking off and become a very formidable tropical cyclone as it heads up towards Cuba here. That'll be its first area that it could impact, likely as a high-end tropical storm, and then rapidly intensify as it heads into the Gulf of Mexico. But intensification not very likely over the next 24 hours, but after that, we'll likely see this go from like a 40-mile tropical storm to a 70-mile tropical storm within like an advisory or two. That'll be rapid intensification. That'll pause as it enters the area approaching Cuba, and then rapid intensification should commence as it heads back into the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico with weak vertical wind shear. Looking at the tropical cyclone intensity models, we can clearly see this potential for rapid intensification here. And you can see a lot of these models take it from tropical storm strength and bring it into the Gulf as a Category 2 or 3 storm at landfall here along the Gulf Coast. And these intensity models have been trending a little on the low side recently this year due to how warm the waters are. The ship model has been doing pretty well, but usually once rapid intensification is about to begin, and we're not expecting that until the Gulf. So we'll closely be watching the ship model once we head into the Gulf of Mexico, because that is generally pretty good once we start talking about rapid intensification. So definitely, given these models right here, do not be surprised to see a Category 3 storm or higher making landfall along the northern Gulf Coast of the United States here. Or the United States Gulf Coast of the Gulf here. I don't know where I was getting at that. But rapid intensification as it enters the Gulf, as I've said, is very likely. So definitely keep an eye on this storm, which will likely be named Delta probably before this is posted. Looking at model consensus right here, this is the GFS ensembles. We generally have pretty good agreement here that the storm will go in between the Yucatan Peninsula and Cuba, leading to rapid intensification yet again as it heads toward the apex of this ridge axis and then gets dragged back to the north on the western periphery of this ridge and is expected to make landfall somewhere in between Houston and Tallahassee yet again. This would be, I believe, the 4th landfalling storm this year that has made an impact within those two cities. So definitely keep an eye on that, especially in areas that were decimated by Laura and Sally, which were in this region as well. And I believe Cristobal was too. Okay. One other thing, we're going to go into aircraft recon here, if they've done any flights. No, they have not. Never mind on that. So here is Tropical Storm Gamma here. Latest observations from the hurricane hunters show a slight weakening trend here. The pressures have been rising since this plane has been within the storm, and they've gone from 995 to 998. I believe this is over the past 3 to 4 hours here. So pretty quick decrease in pressure here. Would expect this system to be no more within the next 3 days, as I was saying earlier here. So now we are going to go over what is causing the tropics to be so active yet again. We had that brief week period where we had no activity going on in the Atlantic, and now we have 4 areas of interest here. So what's causing this rapid increase in tropical cyclone activity? So we're going to start out by going to let's see if my computer wants to work here. There we go. We're going to pull up the satellite here over South America, and most importantly over Venezuela, Colombia, and Peru, as that is where our South American gyre is setting up right now, due to the MJO, which we will also bring that up as well, so you can have a look at a basic image of what the MJO looks like. So here we go. Alright, here we go. So here is our satellite imagery for Central America right here. And we can actually, let's pop this on infrared. There we go, long wave infrared. This will make it much easier to see what's going on here. Actually, I think we can zoom this in a little bit more. I don't think so, actually. Okay, we'll stay with this. This is pretty good. But we can clearly see here this area of circulation with this circle of thunderstorms spanning from all the way down in Bolivia, rotating around Peru, Colombia, Venezuela, even Costa Rica, that area, down into the Caribbean, and then over here into Brazil and the Amazon here. We can see thunderstorms really starting to invigorate down there. But on the northern periphery of the circulation, we have the Caribbean. This area of the South American gyre here, that's what this circulation is called. That's over the northern tip of South America. It creates a very buoyant atmosphere, favorable for thunderstorm activity. It also has high wind shear within it, which is why this system is struggling so much right now, and why we have all these supercell storms developing up over Brazil, and even had one last night near Cusco in Peru there. I believe it dropped a tornado. I'll have to get back on that. But it creates a lot of wind shear. That's how we get these supercell thunderstorms here, and that's why we're having a hard time getting this system to organize right now. But the key here is that it increases our potential for thunderstorm activity in the Atlantic Basin, convective maximum, when these gyres arrive in South America. The nice thing about this is normally due to the Coriolis force, we have these systems getting directed off to the right in the northern hemisphere here. And that generally gets these areas of thunderstorms to get pulled away from the higher wind shear within this circulation here. The circulation tends to get these thunderstorms going, but does not help to increase the threat of a tropical cyclone all in itself. As the Coriolis force pulls these thunderstorms away from the equator up to the north, these systems and areas of thunderstorm activity move away from that area of higher wind shear, which is what is an inhibitor for tropical cyclone development. This will cause the chances for tropical cyclones to develop to be much, much greater. And that's exactly what's happening here. Same thing happened with Gamma. It was very weak when it moved from the Caribbean, and then as it started to pull north, it intensified rather quickly on approach to the Yucatan, but then it started to interact with this trough axis up here, which killed it. Completely unrelated to the South American gyre here. But with this system, it's going to start moving to the north, and there will be no wind shear to the north. And as it moves away from those wind shear created by the South American gyre here, it will start to rapidly intensify just because of the amount of thunderstorms that are going to be able to develop around it for the next few hours. And those thunderstorms will help latent heat release happen much quicker than it normally would in the average environment. This is also actually why we've had a very inactive MDR region here off of the African coastline. We've had a lot of invests in this area, but very few of them have actually turned into hurricanes or tropical storms in this area. Most of them have either done it to the north or done it in the Gulf of Mexico, or very close to that near the Bahamas. This is also due to this area of the South American gyre here, which is increasing the wind shear across the MDR region right now, which means we see these systems develop much closer to home in the Gulf and the Caribbean here. So that's why we haven't been seeing a very active we haven't been seeing it become very active in this area right here. It's been mainly in the Gulf and right along the Atlantic coastline. So that's an explanation of that. Also, we can see here, this is your MJO, which is basically a measure of where this gyre is and where your most robust convection is going to be. Generally, we look for the number to be either 1 or 8 for significant tropical cyclone activity, which we had late in the month of September, which is not a surprise here, as that was when we had that extremely active period when we got into the Greek alphabet, and we had multiple storms at the same time in the Atlantic at this time. That's when the Atlantic and the MDR got active. But now we are in phase 4 through 5, and it looks to stay in that area for the near future. We got into this area right around the 2nd of October, which is coincidentally when Gamma did form, and we're expecting this to continue to remain in this region, which does favor the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean for development and close to the United States coastline. This shows us that the South American gyre is convectively active right now, and it looks like it's going to get increasingly active as the month goes on. So expect more than just these 2 tropical cyclones that are about to be in the Gulf of Mexico in the next few days here. Could even be talking about Fujiwara, but still a little early to be talking about Fujiwara effects here. But basically what we get from this is we have a very convectively active period starting to get underway here in the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean Sea, which looks to be hanging around for pretty much the remainder of the month here. So we're going to be in for a bumpy ride along the U.S. Gulf Coast once again. So that's about all we have for this briefing on the tropical weather that's going to be potentially impacting residents of the United States near the Gulf of Mexico. Also, in a later live stream, we're going to be talking about the potential for a very high wind event approaching New England middle of this coming week. Have a great day, everybody, and we will be back live shortly.